So in this video series, we're going to cover the all-important flexion and extension piece of the thorax. Okay, so I've heard the term before, flexion and extension. In this four-part video series, I'm going to cover the role of the thorax in the backswing, how it bends or flexes and extends, as well as the movement on the through swing and the swing combined. Now, if we look above me here, we see a bend number. Now, if I go into, say, a normal forward bend of about 30 to 35 degrees, that's about where we'd normally set up. So we normally reference this from down the line because it's very easy to see. As I start to extend the thorax back, that number reduces down to 0 and it even gets into a negative number. Now, that range of motion is very normal and it's very common unless we have, aging backs and a lot of tightness. And it's important to understand, how does that sort of flexion and extension relate back to the golf swing and how do we use it? Well, if I start in a normal sort of forward bend position, looking on the screen there, it's about, say, 35, and I turned in flexion, that would look something like that. So I've turned about 80 degrees, but I've stayed in about the same forward flexion as where I started. Now, if you look at what's happened to my head and my chest, it's moved down and across. Now, the challenge in this position is I have to somehow figure out how to get back onto the ball. So what we're really looking at in this position is turning in the forward flex that we started in. As I start to extend back, as I demonstrated at the start, that number reduces, it gets down to 0, and I can even make it go into a negative, a very normal range of motion. If we look at golfers like Tony Finau and John Ram, for example, they stay a little bit more in forward flexion. Golfers such as Sergio Garcia, Matt Wolff, they have a lot more thoracic extension. That allows their swings to become longer, potentially creating more leverage and speed. Now, not everyone has to extend to that point, but the benefits are really twofold. As we look into my next video, will show you how we demonstrate that with a club. But the main benefit, as we look at it as in a dry drill situation, would be the fact that the pivot becomes centered as I extend, and that makes it a lot easier to control the low point. And just to finish on this point, because anything can be overdone in the golf swing, we could certainly extend too much too soon in the backswing, which then causes the body to start to get into kind of a reverse looking position. So understand, with any movement, it's about balance. I tend to find a lot of golfers come to me looking to create length in the backswing, and they're missing a very important component, which is the extension piece. So understand it, know how to practice it, know how to implement it, and I'm sure you'll be on your way to much better body motion, a much freer looking pivot, and a much more centered looking pivot. In upcoming videos, I'm going to talk about the extension of the thorax as it relates to the club, what that looks like. And we're also going to cover the finish position, what extension looks like in the finish, and the all-round motion of the extension of the thorax from setup to backswing to transition into the finish.